I'm here today with Anthony Reeves, who's the EVP of Creative at Moxie, and Matt Silliman, who's the VP Director of Digital Production at BBDO. So what we're going to talk about today and what we're going to go through is we're going to talk about creative. We're going to talk about the influence of technology on creative. We're going to talk about HTML5 versus Flash, video, dynamic creative, production, sort of everything under the sun. It's going to be a pretty wide open conversation. So, I obviously have a bunch of questions and I'll sort of prep these guys. But if anyone at any point in the audience has a thought or a comment, raise your hand. I'll make sure to include you. It'll be a lot more fun if this is a collaborative discussion. So sort of given that, I'll kick it off. The sort of first question up for grabs is, when we think about technology and we think about what's gone on with technology over the last 10 years, 5 years, and even in the last few years, whether it's on the content side or on the production side, how is technology changing the creative process for you guys? How is it influencing your business? How is it impacting the work that you guys do for your clients?
I think for me the hardest thing is staying in front of it, and that's really the I would say the bitch of the situation. To be perfectly honest, is things change at such a rapid pace now. Like when I was a little bit younger, the question was what sort of film do you want to shoot on, whereas now is like what sort of platform or where are you migrating to, or how are you going to personalize it to the customer. So every day it changes in such a rapid pace, and feeding creative people's mind on those changes is a near impossible task.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's funny, when we're working at BBDO, we've come from such a big traditional way of looking at how we're advertising. A lot of it, comes from one-way communication or starting and inspiring communication, where now we always focus on the conversation. So how do brands engage in conversation with a consumer? It's not one way. It has to be reciprocal. So what we try to do in every single thing that we do is inspire conversation around what we're doing. And that could be, doing something that focuses around UGC, right? Like, so we want users to engage by thinking about something we put out there and then adding their own spin to it or adding to that conversation. Hopefully that takes off and they share with their friends and that they share with their friends. And so it's a new way of thinking about that conversation. Now, the other thing is that everything that we're doing is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it's almost ridiculous. But and that's from a production perspective. We have to think about so many different screens, screen sizes, browsers, browser versions, optimizing for in some cases, and some clients that are stuck behind firewalls, optimizing for IE7. Oh my gosh, like that's
not fun.
1,000 years ago in the land of digital. So it's all of these things we always have to be thinking about and always have top of mind when we're thinking about the conversation that we're inspiring. And so, but the cool thing is that there's specialists, and the whole thing is we just tap those people that know it more than me, know it more than Anthony, and and they help us figure out how we're going to to communicate to our audience there. So
I think one of the interesting things, Matt and I have sort of crossed paths like he works at BBDO now. Mm-hmm. I'm at Moxie. I worked at BBDO in Auckland and Singapore, and so it's kind of interesting. We come from very similar but completely opposite worlds.
And I used to work at Moxie too.
So I won't say that. But I think the interesting thing is I think BBDO is one of the BBDO Auckland, where are we, Atlanta, is one of the agencies that have traditionally pushed out messaging, that have switched themselves to that true communication platform. And it's in one way, coming from Moxie, it's kind of competition to a certain extent, but you got to appreciate how hard that truly is to change a mindset of hundreds and hundreds of people to actually create that dialogue, and it takes a long time to shift a whole agency to start thinking that way.
Yeah, so when you guys are thinking about that and thinking about all this sort of platform ideation that has to go into almost everything you do, right? It used to be TV, and it was a TV spot, and that's what you'd shoot, and there was one format, and it would run, and that was it. And then it was, obviously some search, and then it was banners, and even with banners on the web, it was Flash, and Flash became fairly ubiquitous. You didn't have to think about all this cross-browser stuff. You didn't have to think about other devices. I mean, Flash literally worked cross-platform, and now we're obviously in this world where it's totally different, right? If you're doing stuff on mobile, you've got to think about the apps and writing code for SDKs for specific apps, or if you're doing browsers, you got to think about the different OSs and then different browsers within. I mean, the world has gotten, I think, to the point you made earlier, Matt. The world has gotten and is getting sort of more and more and more fragmented. So when you guys sort of think about that, and again, the approach, sort of walk us through how the approach is evolving, where it went from something that was fairly singular to now something that is almost probably borders for you guys on impossible to manage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it all starts with a brief. Really we analyze what and how we're talking to whom, right? So it's one of our clients is AT&T, and so in those situations we have to think mobile first. We'd be ridiculous not to. Client says it, we say it, we all say it. It's our mantra, right? Mobile first. But but in the way that you speak to people through a mobile phone that are on a mobile phone, more than likely those people are on the move. They're maybe on an app, they're on a site, they're on something that they're there for a reason, right? It's not like many times they're not, that audience isn't just browsing, they're there for a purpose. So you have to grab attention, you have to disrupt what they're doing in a way that's not annoying them, that's gonna actually engage them. So all of this we think about, or our creative teams think about way up front. Like, okay, so we know these people are going to be here. We know that this is the message that we're going to try to get to them. And so we think about all the technology that we can use to get there, and then we boil it down. And what we try to do with everything that we produce is keep it as simple as possible. And that's hard in such a complicated medium as digital media. So a lot of times what happens, we get things up on the wall, we think this, it's sky's the limit, and then we start boiling it down collectively. And we have, again, experts in the room. We have our UX team, we have tech leads, we have digital technologists, and we all kind of help understand exactly how we're going to put that message together. And that's a bit of our process. In other situations, it's easier. It's all driven by media. You've got banners that are going to run on these sites, and we build specifically for that. But it all kind of comes from the beginning, the very beginnings of how we're thinking. And one more point on that, it used to be that we'd come up with, like, the idea would come through. We'd say, we need an idea to sell this phone, or this outdoor gear, whatever, and then creative would come up with a big idea around that. And big idea, we're not losing that. It's still very much part of what we do, but now there's all these other considerations. So we bring multiple people into the room to help collaborate and figure that piece out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what we do. I do believe that we've actually gone backwards a little bit. Like we still start with the pencil sketches and still start with the big idea, then pushing down from there. I think it's really key that that initial thought is still there, the initial nugget is still there. I remember people say, like, why are you going back to black and white and going back to marker pens? And I think it's to keep technology in your mind, and we have the content and the UX and the tech and all that sort of stuff in the same room, but I think the simpler the message, the greater chances of getting through, and it's truly looking for that omni experience, and no matter what platform they're on, so whether they're going through an Xbox experience or a mobile experience, it feels exactly the same all the way through. And from a pure creative point of view, I think the task is a lot harder these days when I was actually a lot more on the tools than actually doing the job itself. I hate to think of the experiences that people have to go through, and you have to really think. People used to always talk about an experience journey, or what's the journey for the user. These days, we tend to be thinking more of a content journey. What content are they going to consume all the way through to actually get to that point of sale? And that's a lot tougher than before.
So when you think about that on the content piece specifically and where people are going to consume it, and you sort of go back to the big idea phase, how is that sort of impact? I mean, you touched on it a little bit to say that you're thinking about it, but if, let's say, you know the crux of the campaign is going to end up being mostly for TV, are you in that sort of ideation, big idea phase really thinking about TV and then sort of considering those other things after, or has the process truly changed in today's creative world where you are thinking about everything, even if TV is still going to get the bulk of the dollars?
I think we're not so much we're digital first, and then if necessary push out to other mediums. But I do think it's still very much idea centric. Is really for us pushing that single thought. And if you think of yourself as a consumer, anytime you feel uncertain is when you walk away and you don't lean in and buy. So when you're thinking about that buying cycle, if we're shooting footage, we actually make sure we're only letting that footage out one bit at a time rather than the whole lot. And I think it's harder too, because if you think of the millennials out there, and there's probably one or two of them in the room, there's 105 million millennials out there at the moment who live and breathe by their device. That's what they live on. And it's on their pillow every night. And first thing they do when they wake up in the morning is check their cloud score and all that sort of stuff. And,
Does anyone actually check their cloud score when they wake up in the morning? There you go.
Yeah.
2, 3. Half hand here. 3.5. 3.5.
So has anyone got above 60 in the room?
Nope. Nice.
One
I
hand.
hate you, Gina. I'm 4 behind you at the moment. And it's a different experience because they consume information at such a rapid pace, but they only consume it in tiny bits and bytes. Mm-hmm. And that's such a big mindset for creative people to actually be able to understand that. Like I'm kind of in my 40s, and and to actually take it back a couple of years is really hard to think about just those little slithers of information and how to migrate people through it. So it's a lot tougher.
Yeah, and I mean, when I started, it was when I got over to BBDO, rather, digital was a bolt-on. And that's kind of what we would call it. It was, okay, so we got to come up with this bigger idea. It's going to be a TV spot. We call it film. But it's it's a TV spot, and then we figure out what the digital component would be to support that bigger TV idea. But it's shifted, and it shifted naturally, and it's been comfortable, a lot more comfortable than what I thought it would be, because I think our creative team and creative teams are hungry for this, and they understand, and they want to create and come up with these big ideas, and they're not, and I think that they feel we've seen that TV is a great outlet, and there's a place for TV, but there's also a place for digital. So the way that we do it these days is, again, it kind of depends on what the message is and what we're trying to do, but we have creative teams with UX. Strategy is always a part of our ideation phase right now. My team, production, and kind of digital leadership at the agency, and we all come together. Now, that doesn't mean that we sit in brainstorms all day long together, always together. It's not that way. It may be that the digital team comes in a few days afterwards to help with that part of it, knowing that the creative team is coming with the original big idea. In other situations when we're being mandated to think digital first or mobile first, then we'll be a part of the ideation way up front. But the actual method of coming up with ideas, to me, hasn't changed. It's still coming up with ideas, spitballing, putting things on the board, and then seeing what shakes out. The cool thing, though, what I think is, which is a nice change, especially coming from a digital background, is that prototyping is here and it's caught on, right? For us, it's, we don't do it every time, but when we have an opportunity, we like to just get our ideas, not just down on paper, but really start messing around and seeing how things work within, with technology. And we kill a million things, right? We kill a million things, but each time we kill something, We learn from it. And the other thing is, I'm sure anybody that's worked on any advertising campaign or works at an ad agency can understand this. If we go off and come up with a big idea and we just hold it and we covet it and nobody sees it, and then we spend 2 weeks on that, and then that idea is presented to the team, inevitably somebody's going to have an issue with that, right? So, and you've lost all this time. And this is something that's very important to me as a producer and somebody that manages producers, is we've just lost all that time to tell you that that actually is not going to work, or that could be better this way. So by having the team kind of together and working together and running in more of sprints instead of these long conceptual periods really helps. So it's a long-winded, well, I'm always long-winded, but like it's a way that it's a new way of how we're looking at the big idea, and it's more people involved earlier and together. So that's my take on it.
You see, in a lot of agencies, they would see that actually people working out an initial thought,
Yeah.
but I think to a certain extent you're getting buy-off a lot sooner. And it's interesting because a lot of the clients we have are loving black and white sketches and going backwards and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Oh, there's a question.
Yeah, fire away.
It's not really a question.
There's a statement.
Yeah, his mic's not on.
Mine? No.
Yeah.
Mine?
Yours?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wait. Mic's not on. We're just having a little bit of trouble hearing you back here. I think we hear you through that guy's mic.
Still on?
No? Try again?
It's a technology issue.
Ugh.
I
Technology.
didn't want to wait this long, but
I'm glad you waited that long because I was on a roll for a while. And people know not to interrupt. Can you hear me now?
Want to do black and white sketches of the mic, or mic that first?
Yeah, we'll keep going. We can. I'll give you mine, and we can even share.
Yeah.
So I think is that back on or no? No. So I think what was interesting and kind of where we were going in that conversation was kind of talking about where the ideas are coming from, how they're evolving. My question, my sort of follow up to that was, where is that push coming from? Is that coming from clients pushing for more digital, or is that coming from you guys getting just a bigger voice in the room because more budget is shifting to digital?
Well, since I'm mic'd. I mean, it's not coming from one place, right? It's just the landscape is shifting. It shifts all the time. It shifted way back in the day. It shifted from radio to TV, and now we are in this digital era. So it's, we make advertising and we use...
We sell shit.
Yeah, we sell shit, is exactly right. And that's what we do. And so we utilize whatever's out there that's going to inspire, delight, and again, create this conversation. So yes, clients are asking us to innovate. Clients are expecting us to know what's the next big thing and bring that to the table. But also there's an innate quest for what that next big thing is that we're seeing. So we want to do the next big thing. We want to push our message in ways that that we can, at least from a digital side of it. And so so it's just happening, right? And it's fun, and digital is sexy in my opinion too. So working on these type of projects get me up in the morning. So I mean that's the deal. What do you think?
I think also, wow, I can hear myself now.
Nice.
I think also the other side, I think customers are really, clients and people are really pushing it as well. And they're really driving us to innovate consistently and always moving forward. And if you think about it from a US standpoint, because I find it quite fascinating that it's really from the coast in where customers are asking for more and more. And when you get into the I would say, the Midwest or Kansas sort of area, technology isn't as much. But if you look at society and think about all the great things that have happened in society, they always happen on the fringes. So if you look at the invent of hip hop and you look at even metrosexuals, they always happen on the outside, and slowly it's come closer and closer in. But the invent of technology, and when you talk about stuff like BiClone, clients are asking us, what about BiClone? What about this? What about that? But then at the same time, people are wanting it, and if we need to stay ahead ahead of the competition and really promote ourselves, we need to be a part of that. The unfortunate thing is the tech business as a whole, I'm not talking about us, I'm also talking about Samsung and all the people that actually build the technology. They're roughly 2 years ahead of the consumers. And the interesting thing is, the 2 years ahead of consumers is exactly the same time your cell phone, smartphone contracts truly are formed. Mm-hmm. And so we're developing really 2 years ahead of everyone, and it's kind of crazy that that cycle still exists. And my wife, her family, bless them dearly, are from Wisconsin, from a dairy farm, and I was actually talking to a guy at AOL last night about doing this road trip where we actually take a bus from coast to coast going through the heartland of the US talking to people about technology. And then making a documentary, don't you steal that, making a documentary about it. Because one of the things they do not understand tech at all. And I'm talking about they don't understand tech. They have to have Wi-Fi beamed down from satellites to the house because they can't get internet into their house itself. And Angie, the mother's comment to me was, we use so much internet, we don't use 3G, we use 4G. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go for a run now. And it's interesting because the fringes will eventually push in, and we have to keep in front of the fringes because it'll keep moving closer and closer. And the day we stop inventing and the day we stop getting better, clients will turn away and customers will turn away. Yeah. And customers really look at tech as their number, or the digital as their number one. For instance, if you do a TV spot and it's the best idea ever and you get $1 million to shoot it around the world and you have a great time and you decide to shoot on 35 millimeter on Kodak stock and you travel the world and you lose some of the footage, but no matter what happens, you go around and people love it so much. Where's the first place they go to actually enjoy that experience? Do they walk into the store? Do they go to the stadium? They look for a billboard? They go online. So how do we keep enhancing that experience online so they keep getting attracted to come back time and time again? And the more they come back, and the more they touch the brand, the higher chance they have of buying.
I think it's interesting too. I think the theme and sort of what I'm hearing from you guys is being iterative is a really critical part of the process. It's one of the things that sort of helps keep you guys ahead of what the next idea is, or making sure that you're using the latest and greatest technology. And that's an interesting theme. I mean, you're starting to see things like that even in other industries like manufacturing with companies like Quirky, or obviously all this 3D printing is allowing people to make these rapid prototypes of things that they never otherwise, used to have to send it over to Asia to get the mold, have it shipped back. It was like a 6-month thing. Now people are literally iterating on these ideas, hard ideas, in weeks at a time. Obviously in the software world, agile development is kind of what we're talking about here. So I think it's an interesting theme, and it's a broad trend, and I think it really goes beyond beyond advertising and beyond creative, but it's critical for creative to stay ahead, that is the mentality and that is the mindset.
However, you did ask about Flash and HTML earlier and areas like that. And people ask, is Flash on the way out? And it's a big question because it's, in one sense, the answer is yes, right? But we've got to convert every media platform to convert over at the same time, which is truly hard. The other side of it is, it might be dying in the US or backing off in the US, but it's definitely not dying in other parts of the world. And unfortunately, the States is not the be-all, end-all for the world domination. And when some of
sure? Positive.
My green card is up application. It is, yeah. But I was recently chatting to a creative director from Saatchi in Cape Town in New York, and they have Flash is so prominent there purely because it's a way out for people to have a better life. Mm-hmm. So Flash is apparently an easy thing to learn, and it's easy to learn how to code and move forward. So if you're in shanty towns, you can pick up a computer and learn how to code, and therefore you'll get a job that you can send money back to your family in areas like that. So yes, it's kind of dying here. We still have a lot of coders that do Flash, and we do a lot of Flash, and it still won't die. And I don't know if it will for many, many, many years. Many years.
Yeah, I can add to that. I mean, we Flash is interesting because we've been building our digital team up steadily over the past few years. And when I was at Moxie, we would we'd bring in designers that knew Flash, and that was just part of it. Out of school, you knew Flash, you knew digital design, and you knew how to do time code Flash executions. And that's not the landscape here anymore. When we're looking for developers, and by the way, we do a lot of Flash as well. At BBDO, the media team buys Flash, we build Flash. That's how it works. So but to get new blood in, it's very, very hard. Designers and programmers, it's just not part of the deal. We've had to turn away developers that are amazing because they don't know this, and it's such a big part of what we do. And Flash serves a purpose. It just does. I mean, HTML5 is the adoption rate, it's not there yet. It's expensive. It is a lot of sites won't serve it. So I mean, so the way that we're doing it is we actually have technical leads that are training our Flash developers in HTML and HTML5. And from a media perspective, that's kind of the nice fit because we can do both and we can support both, and we'll continue to support both as long as both technologies are relevant. Now, to go outside of banner and media, HTML5's work is just blowing me away. I mean, the interesting thing is that musicians have really taken on, some, as far as ad tech goes, they've really embraced this. I mean, there's the most recent, this Bjork site that she just put up, and it's all flat, or all HTML5, and it's just amazing. You can like build different galaxies inside of galaxies, and it's all over the place. And then there was Arcade Fire, of course, came out with their site a few years ago, and even Foo Fighters did something that's nice in HTML5. And the reason we're attracted to that from a development and a production perspective is because it's accessible, right? And everything that we do, or most of what we do, we want to have a nice mobile or tablet experience as well. And of course, Flash can't do that. But again, with everything else that I'm saying, we pick and choose the technology and the language, and to sync up with the audience and the message we're trying to tell. So
I'm just quick poll of those in the room that have worked on a Flash campaign. Just sort of raise your hand, or been involved with Flash. How many of you have been involved with HTML5? So it's roughly even, if not maybe even a little more, to HTML5. So I think that's interesting, just in terms of kind of the landscape and obviously where things are shifting. I think the challenge seems to be, and I think you guys have identified it, in the resources, right? Because Flash it's an authoring tool, and there's a scripting language behind it, but learning how to use an authoring tool is really different than learning how to write JavaScript, right? And I think, and the tools to build things in HTML5 aren't nearly as sophisticated as what Flash has built over. I mean, we used to make websites in Flash, right? Not just ads. So
big, beautiful, shiny, motion-filled, invisible websites.
Right.
In Flash,
Totally.
yes.
Totally. So I guess thinking about that for you guys, and you kind of addressed the question I had was kind of around the resource challenge, but you've talked about how you're training people that were Flash developers to now become HTML5 developers.
Well, and the other interesting thing is that Flash developers, oh my gosh, like again, a few years ago, we could hire a Flash developer at a kind of an entry-level to mid-level range, but that's not the case anymore. Now Flash developers come at a premium. It's interesting how it's shifting that way.
And they tend to be a bit older.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they do.
Is it because they're older? That's why they come at a
I don't know what it
premium?
is. I just think they're at a different. Maybe it's just that they're trained in that mindset of timeline, or I'm not too sure why. But I think you and I have discussed in the past. It's a great little pool of people to find that are slightly more older, which is great because they're slightly more mature about the way they go to business, and I can relate to them a little bit better. But it's just a different way of thinking, and to a certain extent, there's a little bit less hand-holding from the business side of why we're doing something. So in one way, I would say maybe the older generation is a little bit, I don't say less creative, but they just go about their job, and the younger generation has more fire and more spark and more drive. So,
Any questions out there on Flash or HTML5 for these guys? True.
So when you guys are talking about Flash, is that like used synonymously with like 720 by 90, like 300 by 250, like just really, really standard banners? So I think those guys are going to stay around for a while, or are we going to maybe see some other stuff, but then Flash will still kind of be part of that?
Could you guys hear the question in the back? So the question, if I could paraphrase, was when we're talking about Flash up here, are we talking about 728 by 90 banners, 300 by 250 banners, or are we talking about other things? And kind of what happens to Flash, or what happens to those other things that will replace it?
I haven't put, from a site point of view, I haven't seen a site built in Flash for a big site built in Flash for a long time. And undoubtedly someone will go, oh my God, this is fantastic. But the great thing, and you have the same thing with AT&T, is we work a lot on Verizon, and because of that, the media buying power that exists is a lot of our partners. I'm talking about Google and Yahoo and those, and AOL. They're willing to work with you to do some amazing things. So standard sizes, fine, but if build, and I can't stress this enough, partnerships within our industry are number one, and I think it's critical whether the partnership is with a production company, a video house, or a media supplier, is they will work for you if you work for them, and they will try really hard to get what you're looking for. And we, with AOL and Google, we help push them, and they help push us at the same time, and that partnership is premium, and I would never burn a partnership.
And my response to that is, I don't know. I know that, BBDO, depending on our clients, so some of our clients, REI or Embassy Suites, or some of these type of clients where we're very close with our media partners, we have more opportunity to influence that. And in those situations, we can say, well, let's try an HTML5 buy. Let's try a buy that is going to allow us to build one set of assets that we can push out across different devices, and that's fantastic. And we love it, and we think that that's the that's the relationship we're fostering with our media partners on AT&T, MEC, and these people. So, but there's always going to be a discussion and a consideration of cost to do that. And when we're talking about banners, and again, we're talking about banners right now, not site work. When we're talking about banners, that we're building advertising. So if the channel to get our advertising to the consumer is Flash, we'll build a Flash banner. Hopefully, each month there's other opportunities. Apple actually won't even let us will not even let us advertise their products in Flash. Like, we have to build HTML5 specific banners for those products. That's their thing. We do it, we love it, we have fun with it, so bring it on. But again, it's
and they pay for it. They pay the
and
premium.
they pay the premium.
Yeah, Matt and I made a pact with each other not to talk about data
Yeah.
tonight. So
That's next on my list. Big data.
Big data or little
data. Yeah. The thing is, though, with digital, it can be tested and retested, and the cost per click, cost per sale, cost per acquisition. You know how much it costs. So the testing of even little things of if HTML5 costs a little bit more than Flash, that input in there from the front, and the cost per the device sale is, how do you work that out? It's interesting, and they will back end that down to the last penny. And that's the world we live in at the moment, is what is that cost and versus actually cost to the customer itself, or cost of losing the customer, depending on what you're doing.
Yep.
My question actually falls, sorry, I'll try to project, falls in line with kind of what you were,
Yeah, but it looks cool.
I know, I'll just keep talking. In regards to, do you consider the client that you're working on whether or not you produce in Flash or if you produce in HTML? Because to your point, there is a premium. So if it's a strict DR client, are you going to produce in HTML? Or would you continue on, the path that is the least expensive? So how does that play into kind of your decision?
I don't think.
Let me just recap the question so people can hear. The question was, when you guys are thinking about building a campaign, do you take the client in mind when you're making the decision to do Flash or HTML5? So if it's DR, for example, and every dollar is critical, do you just go down the sort of most cost-effective path?
Honestly, some clients don't really care on what you build it in, and non-tech clients, but Apple, for one, is a beast. And you know, I've been around Apple for quite a few years now, different agencies, and they're one that would have to pay the premium. I think even when Silverlight was big 4 years ago, Microsoft said every site we do has to be built in Silverlight. And it was 3 times the cost, or 3x the cost, and they did not care. It had to be built in Silverlight. So it really depends on the client. But a DR client, whether it's DR on a screen or DR on TV, they really don't care on how it's built. It's really based on that bottom dollar and how it's driven. And
Yeah.
why clients are interesting.
Yeah, and I think that was I mean, that's certainly our side of it as well. It's you know, it's if you are if we're trying to sell and the message is DR, like we're just gonna plaster the internet with this BOGO offer. We're gonna build that banner fast, and we're probably it's going to have we have much more of a dynamic component. We can build them dynamically right now through our RMP partners, our rich media providers, if we do them in Flash right now. And so that's what we do, right? So it's going to be, hey Atlanta, you know, LTE network, you know, or you know, and then we can take that same message in Flash and load in every single city and just push it out there fast. So again, it just depends on the message, the client, and in our case, and from a production perspective, how quickly we can get it out there.
We had a question, second row.
Let's see if this is working now.
There we go.
So what's the percentage markup of Flash versus HTML5, and why? Why is it more expensive? Why is it more of a premium?
It's a good question. I think that it's probably going to even out, and you know, eventually. And really, the premium comes because, for one, there's not a lot of networks that support HTML5 yet. So cost is a consideration. And I don't know the exact markup from a production perspective. We just don't. There's just the pool of people that can build HTML. And again, we're talking about banners. HTML5 banners and optimize them is considerably less than the people that we have, at least in house, that can do Flash work, right? So, and again, working at BBDO, we love big images. We love taking these photographs that look beautiful and epic that we do in print. And you know, and we've had a good few years of learning that you don't have to just take that giant image and shove it into a little banner and put it up. It can be a different message entirely. But in this situation, there's still a lot of clients and creative that want to have that nice, crisp image. And HTML5 banners, at least the way that we build them, if we want them to look and act like our Flash banners, are heavy. So we spend a lot of time optimizing those and figuring out how we can take that message and put it in HTML5. So that's a little bit of why it costs more.
All right, my question is actually a little bit to something you'd mentioned earlier, where I feel like creative used to very much drive the process for the media buying and how it was actually executed, where I feel like, one, digital is not necessarily driving the strategy these days. It's coming from a larger, like, TV type of thought. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, but then also, how do you guys deal with that disconnect between what the creative is looking to accomplish and what the media is looking to accomplish? Because you guys are typically not in the same room, and so, you know, for someone sitting on my side where I'm trying to understand how do I bridge both of those to make them effective when people are not communicating and the goals and objectives are completely separate as well.
I'm not a politician, so I can go with the first question.
It was about
The two-part question.
creative, digital driving strategy versus something like a traditional TV project.
I think again it depends on the client. Where with a lot of larger clients, they buy 9 months out. But on the campaign level, it can be bought out a week out or something like that. It depends on the demand of area out there. And it depends on what you're talking about as well. So if you're talking about straight banner work, the media is bought a long way out. However, content itself, like video content, the demand is getting bought up very, very quickly, so you have to be on that. But also, I want to make sure there's actually a couple of types of strategy as well, because you have media strategy, you have digital strategy, and then you also have like a brand experience strategy. So it really depends on what type of strategy you're physically talking about, makes a big difference. And I'm fortunate enough, because what we're doing is, if you think of the speed the consumer moves these days, is we've actually blended our experience team in with our creative team. So it's one larger department at the moment, all the way from basic community management through to experience planning, strategy planning, content, and creative, is one theoretically seamless road. And that has helped the communication levels, and the strategy is actually then coming out that way, rather than just like, we bought this site and we're going to put some banners on that. And I have completely forgotten the second part of that.
The second part was, it was basically,
Creative and media talking together to make sure that you guys are accomplishing similar objectives where, for example, I see that media is looking at something like impressions and clicks and completion rates for video, for example, where creative wants engagement and people spending time with the brand, and so those are definitely not congruent, and it makes it really challenging to, how are you actually working together to solve that problem?
I think good tension in any advertising agency is actually really good for the environment. There's good tension, there's bad tension. And having similar but separate goals is not a bad thing at all. There is, as long as at the end of the day we're moving towards the same objective and heading the same way. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I really don't. And it's hard when we have Zenith and Moxie Media, and they're big, right? They're ginormous. And then you got little feisty old Moxie battling away against this behemoth, and it kind of creates this environment. Again, partnerships and relationships will always change every day, and technology moves so fast that having content and video with providers like yourself or telemetry really help the creative product. And the more people can play with what we build, the better off, the happier I am. So I don't know. They're different, but they are the same at the end of the day. So.
Well, and you're a very lucky man because you have your media team in the same building as you guys, or at least right there. I miss Moxie Media. So, and we have strong partnerships with our media partners where we communicate. I think to Anthony's point, we have strategists. These days, strategists are involved. They're actually part of the creative department. They work with us throughout the entire conceptual phase of a project all the way through completion. And the one thing about what you said about creative and strategy may not seeing eye to eye, I think there's different types of work we're talking about. When we have a campaign, right? It's, you're going to sell this next phone. We need to sell this next phone, and you're going to speak to these people, right? That information comes to us. A lot of times we don't even have a media plan bought yet, or at least it hasn't been communicated. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but that's just that's the situation we run into. So we come up with these bigger ideas, and in those situations, we have an opportunity to go back to our media partners and say, we think that this would be a really cool over-the-page experience, or we think that we're targeting millennials and they're on this specific device. Let's get a strong, a robust media buy on this, and we have that dialogue. And that's how it should work, in my opinion, right? And when it does work, it's wonderful, right? And we partner, and we come up with boards and ideas that we bring to the client with our media partners and say, here's the idea, and by the way, this is the media plan that's going to support that. Brilliant when that happens. When it doesn't happen, what you're talking about is always an issue. But when that, I will say the greatest thing about digital media is the fact that it's not you set it and you forget it. Right? Optimization, going back and optimizing, having meetings with media and creative partners after a site or an experience, a banner campaign is live, and looking at how it's performing and then changing it if it's not performing well. You have to do that, right? If you don't do it, then we're not doing our job. We're not collectively doing our job, right? So, we can't just do something, put it out there and walk away. You put something out there and then you look at it and you see what we need to adjust. We adjust it, we put it right back out there, and it's digital, so we can do it fairly quickly.
I think just to expand on the question and to sort of follow up there, whose responsibility is it? I think that it was a good question, and we talked about, so creatives looking for more, sort of brand metrics, and maybe media is looking for more media-focused metrics. So when we talk about optimization, whose responsibility is it? Is it media? Is it creative? Is it a joint task force? I mean, and then how do you get to that point where you're making the decision, yeah, let's change this, and how do you make it so that media is not, it's creative's fault, and creative's saying, no, it's the shitty media that you bought. Like, how do you guys, not that would ever happen.
I don't think it's a question, really. Like, it's always media's fault.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of funny. Like, one of the things, I am going to talk about data, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But data,
big or little.
Data and media are kind of very much the same because of optimization. They're very, very closely tied. If you can get a creative person to talk that little bit about data and to say, when we tried this in the past, you got an X% lift, or this happened, or this worked in this campaign here, so you want to try it over here. The second a creative person starts talking about data and what it can do for your business, and then how it's going to impact the idea, the clients just sit up and go, what?
Yeah.
And having these guys in jeans and a t-shirts all of a sudden talking about why this campaign will work and lift their business changes the room dynamic instantly. And it's part of the sell. Like, our job is to really put stuff in front of the client, but put it out in such a way they really believe it's going to make a huge difference, impact on their business and their customers. And at the end of the day, if you're talking to a marketing manager or a marketing director, and this is kind of the sell part of it, is if you think about their job and their next promotion and their next pay raise and where they want to go, our job is simple, is make them look good. Mm-hmm. Because you give them a PowerPoint presentation, a keynote presentation, or a keynote, or a PDF, and they will pass that up the line to their boss or bosses. And how do we make them look the best? By talking about data and talking about media and the cost per click or cost per thousand, and how their brand's got to grow, and their sales and store traffic will increase. They will buy a lot more, and that makes the agency a lot happier.
And we do, for some of our smaller brands, and something that we're working on with larger clients like AT&T, to answer your question, if something isn't performing, then we need to figure out why. And sometimes the optimization comes from a media perspective. So, these were the wrong sites to play, to put this ad on. So let's change it. Let's take all of our inventory and put it over here, which we know is performing. So that's great. But so there's that piece of it. But there's also internal optimization, and we have an analytics team that helps us with that and can come in and we like to do a lot of A/B testing, like put 2 different messages out there and see what performs. And then, and for REI, and I love this about REI, is we actually sit down once a month after a campaign's gone live. We sit down, we invite creative to that meeting, whether or not they come. A lot of times they do, sometimes they don't. The account team, media, us, and analytics sit down and we look at how things are performing. And if we need to, we make calls right there, what we want to try and how we want to optimize. So I think, again, it's not one person's fault. It's if something is performing, we have the opportunity because of technology to make tweaks quickly and pivot and get the message right back out there. So we'll perform.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of, I think it all ties back to what we were talking about earlier about it being this very iterative process and being a very agile process. And whether it's on the build side or even now on the optimization side, using technology, whether it's things like dynamic creative that will allow you to sort of update the content in the ads, or it's just being able to simply just move media, right, in a programmatic or even a non-programmatic environment. So I think it's an interesting theme, and I think it's central to both sort of pre-ads running and also sort of post when you're thinking about optimization.
I think we've spoken a lot about the collaboration between departments, and I think it's only going to get better and stronger. And I remember back in BBDO in Auckland, where no one was allowed on the creative floor without an appointment. So if you want to go see a creative team,
that's how it used to be at ours too.
You had to make an appointment with the creative services director, who would stand guard and not let anyone on the floor. And it was a punishable by death situation. It really was, and there was, people got floggings and all that sort of stuff. And it was this mindset is nothing's holier than the creative department. And personally, I just think that's a lot of bullshit. And I just the speed that we are now and blending stuff is so much better than it is. Like, we used to work on months on a campaign. Now we're working on a week-by-week basis, and it's changed. It changes so fast, and we're always looking to how we can rearrange the structure of people working together so it's more fluid and more dynamic, because the consumer is always on. Always on. They're always on their phone. The days of doing a flight of TV on a Sunday night, we launch with 8 weeks of 60-second spots and give it a rest and give it another flight later on. That's well and truly gone. It's just it's always on channel where people can actually pick up any bit of communication at any time.
Done?
Good timing.
Yeah, I mean that's, and I love that you said that. Not the creative thing, but like just the collaboration part is that when there was a similar kind of feel at BBDO when I started as well. It was it was creative again. Creative is good. We need to protect them, and we agree, right? Big ideas need to be fostered and built, but it was in those situations, sometimes it was a bit crazy. It was, we're over here, let us do our thing. We'll show you when we're good and ready. And that, I'm happy to say that that's not the way it is anymore. Even at a dinosaur like my agency, it's all about collaborating. It's all about getting our, getting the right people in the room. And we throw this term integrated around a good bit. I think we probably all do. It's a bit of a buzz term, but to me, integrated doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that I'm the best at everything, right? I can come up with the best TV idea, the best digital idea, print and radio. It's all coming from me because I'm integrated. That's not how it works, right? At least not in my head. In my head, it's, I'm really good at TV and I've got some great ideas for digital, but I'm not exactly sure how to bring those out. But I do know that these guys right down the hall are really good at digital creative. Or this person is, can really kind of understand how I'm supposed to speak to this demographic and through what device and what technology. And let's get those guys into the room and we collaborate, and that is how we come up and maintain big and great ideas. And that's just how it was, or how it is. And for a few years, it was a fight. It was a fight to get to the creative department. It was a fight to get time with the account team. It was a fight, and that's gone. And I'm happy to say that it's kind of a brand new world when it comes to advertising agencies, at least ours. And again, it's so much pressure for one person or one department to come up with a big idea. It's got to be like collaborative and large. So.
Cool. So I think we're coming close to our time. I think we probably have room for one or two more questions.
Less about the marketing side. It's less about the marketing side from a creative perspective, but more about actually a site. We're entertaining the idea of re-architecting and visualizing the site that we have, and my boss thinks this can be done in about 2 weeks.
Nice.
Right? So you guys might get these things, you walk up to the client, and gosh, it's hallucinating, and put some pictures out, blah, blah, blah. Any tips on how to sort of message that, and just the process itself? I have a project plan that I put out, thinks it's all garbage, and blah, blah, blah. This should only take like a month, right? So you guys have seen these kind of shows before. Any sort of tips on managing the expectations around that, and how to sort of set the appropriate sort of timelines and things like that in a way that is more realistic than we don't set ourselves up to failure.
What's pushing the budget? What's pushing the timeline? Is it budget, or is it
just time to market, want to go faster. There's lots of reasons, but there are legitimate reasons. He wants to go faster. I don't want to piecemeal it in. This to me is a light switch type thing, or it's a revisualization. So I don't want to introduce new elements in the first month, new elements in the third month. It just needs to be a kind of cohesive light switch type of launch. And he just pushes. Anyway, you get the gist of the question.
Yeah. And I will tell you that sounds very familiar to me as well. It's difficult building websites in the world of advertising, and I don't know what, if advertising is, if this is going to be a site that is going to sell product or advertise product, or if it's just your personal site. But this is the thing. We have a philosophy that the time that it takes to actually build a website, a third of that should be QA, QC. And if you ignore that, and if you chop away at your QA, QC time, you're going to launch with something that is broken. It is so much harder and so more expensive to go back and get that person that came to your website and left because they had a shitty experience, than it is to just hold off and do it right. Also, cost is the cost to build to a website also compounds on itself. When you go through, let's say it's just a traditional waterfall approach, right? And we're going to do our discovery. We're gonna do a user journey. We're going to do a nice wire user experience wireframe phase. Then we're gonna do design. Then we're gonna do develop. Then we're gonna put development up on stage. Then we're gonna test it. Then we're gonna put it out into production. Then we're gonna test it. Then we're gonna go live. That's a giant process, right? But when you change things way up here, so it's so much more affordable to change things when you're in UX or discovery or even design. It only takes a little bit to change things. We're talking about or putting things on the wall. When you get into development, to go back and change even design could potentially take hours and hours. And by the way, you're also going to break something more than likely. So from a cost perspective, it makes much more sense to take your time and put something live. Now, it sounds like you went down the path that I would suggest, which is, okay, if we need something live now, we'll put a landing page up, we'll put up a video, we'll put up a couple things, we'll link it to our social outlets and have that there until we have something up. That's what I would suggest if you have to have something up. Do something that's simple, and then you can launch once everything is in a good place. But again, that doesn't change. That doesn't change with AT&T. It doesn't change with our other clients. It's when you have a hard deadline, you have a hard deadline. And the best you can do from a project management perspective is evaluate the risk, make sure everybody understands what that risk is, if you're going to take those risks, and that we all sign off on that risk, and then you do what you can do. But man, it's a tough place to be in for sure. What do you think?
Your client. No, I don't think there's an answer, but I do like the idea of pushing it to a landing page or a social network. You can almost build on Google Plus, for instance, these days. I don't know how big the site is. You can build an amazing experience just on that in a very, very short period of time. And that could be a short stopgap for something you need just to fill that slot. And I don't know whether, if it's e-com site, then you've got bigger issues.
But if you did have e-com on that site, I would argue that that's why it's even more precious, right? And why you need to really draw the line in the sand there.
And you put it in parallel terms. If e-com is your shop front, and would you ever open a store or a restaurant or a department or something like that where the building isn't finished or it's falling down or there's a health risk or the chance of turning a customer away? And the answer is you would never do it. And that's really what it is. It is e-com, is walking through that. And it could be a customer's only touch with your business, and what risk of the site break is massive. It's massive, and I can't. The third for QA and testing is about right. And sometimes if the whole project is 1,000 hours to build it, you're looking at 370 odd hours for QA. And that's a lot of QA.
Do you guys in most of your client work, do you guys in those experiences, most of your clients do usability?
Usability testing? Absolutely.
Before QA?
You should do it up front. The first thing you should do is gather requirements from users, contextual inquiry, all kinds of, there's all kinds of techniques to get that information from users, and then do it iteratively. You can do paper usability testing. You can do usability testing or prototypes. You should do it every step of the way. You should never do it with more than 5 people, and you should always do it open-ended.
Thanks, guys.
Personally, I'm a fan of paper user testing. That's kind of old school, but I like touching and feeling, And I think that's a key thing for me.
One more question?
Yeah.
Was there one more question?
No, just one more. Take one more. I'm out.
One more question.
That question?
That's an open request. Going once, going twice. All right. Let's go, Natalie.
Sold.
I was just thinking,
You have to get really close with it.
okay, hello. I was just thinking as you guys look ahead, obviously you have a lot of experience in the space and creativity and clients, and as you think ahead 10 years, 20 years, what are you talking about then, creatively speaking? Are you talking about like the Minority Report kind of things and walk into a store and then you populate an advertisement for that experience, or what gets you guys excited about the future of creative?
You want to go?
For me, I purely don't think that I don't think it's ever going to die.
Speaking of dying,
You've got to understand that I break things a lot. And
He's already broken mine. He's already broken mine. He's going to break yours.
I've been at Moxie now for 7 months, and I'm on my 3rd Mac already, so I do break a lot of stuff.
These guys in the back are psych is the first word they've heard you say the whole panel.
you do exist.
When I started at Moxie, I did actually sit the IT guy down and explain my problem. And we had a conversation about it. And I said, I just break Macs. I don't know what I do, but I do break them. So the future of creativity is kind of interesting, is it really depends on the person. And I love to learn. It's just what I am and what I do. And I blame my mother for this, because at the age of 64, she went back and did geology at university, and it kind of drove me crazy. But the future is kind of, I don't think much will change. The platforms will change and the people will change, but what we're actually building for an experience won't change. And I think the hardest thing for a creative person is to really look beyond the facts and the figures and the data and realize you're talking to humans. And at the heart of everyone is passion and thirst and thinking and the ability they want to buy something that they truly believe in, they truly want. Like, I don't know about you guys, I've never bought a boring product in my life. And how do you actually instill that into the data and the media and all of that is really the tough thing. And believing in the product is really something as a creative person I do. I've never worked on a tobacco account or a political account, because you always have the option not. You have, as a creative person, you can say, I won't work on that because I don't believe in the product. And agencies actually understand that, and they will support you in that because they know that you can't put out a good thing. So the belief that people are still going to be people, and they still have hearts, and they bleed, and they will love, they will cry, they will laugh, is truly at the heart of what we do. So I don't think what we do will change. How we do it will, and that's probably the big difference I'll see. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Anytime. I think the future is, in the future, they're going to have computers so small you can put them in your pocket and take them with you. No, I think for me, the trend that I'm really starting to admire is people that can put technology down. So, there's a huge, I'm a parent. I have a 5-year-old boy and another one on the way. And my son can just whip through our iPad and my iPhone that he can find anything and everything he wants. It's ridiculous. So that concerns me. So what we do is we put limits on this type of technology. And there's a trend now where people are actually putting down their cell phones and turning off their computers for weekends at a time. And this is inspiring to me. I think that they're not in this room. No, but I think that what I feel is that technology is going to, instead of becoming screens that we look at and interact with solely, instead of interacting with more interpersonal and like human-to-human contact, I think what's going to happen next is bringing that back to us, because it's the piece we're missing. When I stare at a screen all day, I'm missing interpersonal communications. I'm missing touching Ben. But I think that what technology is going to do is it's going to allow me to have that interaction. It's going to continue to bring us closer, but without the without removing that piece of it. So that's what I think is the future. Everything that you said that you talked about, minority reports, that's here. Like it's here, and if it's not in front of us right now, it'll be there next year. You know, so screen these type of things. That stuff. I mean, if we can think about it, it's going to be here. So the technology, the future that I'm seeing, that we're going to advertise is going to be bringing back the interpersonal, the communication between two human beings face to face. So.
Touching. I was just going to say touching.
And feeling.
I got this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm good. I mean, I think it's all iterative, right? So I think like Facebook is, social network is the third iteration of a social network site, right? Tumblr is the next iteration of blogging software. Google Glass is, I think, the first iteration of something wearable and usable. I think Google Glass is going to fail, but we're going to look back on it because the product 2 to 3 down the road from Google Glass, whatever it is going to be successful, and it is going to change the way that we interact with technology. So I think you could probably look at all the things that we use today and just think about what's the next iteration of that, right? What's the next iteration of my phone going to be, right? Probably can put it down and it's going to project onto whatever screen. It's going to do it automatically. I'm going to talk to it. I mean, I think they're to your point, they're probably already developed. They probably already exist. It's just a matter of like getting them into our hands and then iterating on them.
And making them serve advertising.
Yes, and that. Wonderful. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Matt. It was a great dialogue and appreciate it.